Hey guys, how you going? I hope you're all doing well and welcome to another video. Now in today's video, I'm going to answer a question that I get so often, multiple times a day for sure, which is all about my calisthenics equipment. So I'm going to be discussing basically where I got it from, what you might realistically need and what you can use it for, as well as just explaining my home gym setup, which is what you'll see in a second. It's not very vast, let's say. So that's what we're gonna do in today's video. I thought I would roll it into some sort of vlog style, so I'm gonna take you through my day a little bit. It's actually Sunday today and it's already midday, so I've already had several of my favorite beverages, we're just having coffee, and I've had my breakfast / lunch just now. So I had some oats, but I've also been snacking throughout the morning. I've been having crackers and hummus, and I also had some cereal as well, just like bits and bobs here and there. In terms of what I've done, I woke up, I read a little bit of my book. I bought a new book, which is this one. I don't know if it's any good. I literally went into the bookstore, I read the synopsis, it sounded quite interesting, so I'm gonna give it a go. I'll let you guys know if it's good. And then I did a bit of cleaning, and then I went out on my skateboard. So I'm by no means a good skateboarder at all. I bought one because I thought it looked kind of cool, and I can maybe go from A to B feeling pretty unconfident, especially if there's people around, but I wanna get better at it. And I think I wanna get a smaller skateboard, because at the moment I've got a longboard. In fact, let me just show you. So this is my skateboard. It's pretty big if you compare it to me. It's pretty long, so it's pretty cumbersome to be carrying this around with me when I go out. But it's been really good for me as a beginner, and this came all the way from Australia with me. This was really cheap. I think I bought it in Kmart, and I actually stuck the vinyl on myself, so nothing fancy, but it was my first board and I love it, so I might eventually upgrade it. Anyway, I digress. Let's talk about calisthenics equipment. I'm gonna go and grab my home gym and show you just how extensive and exciting it is. Another distraction has appeared. Hugo has come to say hello. Are you gonna join in? Do you wanna help show the calisthenics equipment? It nearly landed on my coffee. All right, welcome to my gym. It's very organized, as you can see. I think this basically is a visual representation of what my brain looks like most of the time. But I'm gonna sort this out because you don't need to see all of this stuff. Some of it's really random, but it's all exercise stuff. And I'm gonna come back once this is a little bit more organized and tidy. Okay, here we go. This is all my equipment and I'm already getting warm, so I might take this off. But I think what I'm gonna do is just take you through it in no particular order, but explain what I've used it for, how long I've had it for, whether it's really necessary, and hopefully show you some clips as well as to what you can use it for. All right. Okay, so first of all, a few things that you probably already have lying around your house, which is some light dumbbells. So I have got 3 kilo dumbbells, I have 2 kilo dumbbells, I also have 5 and another set of 3s as well. I actually didn't buy any of these were all just given to me by my parents who just had them and they didn't use them. So they were like, do you want them? I took them. I rarely use them, they usually just lie around, but they can be useful for a few things. So things like weighted core exercises, because it's a lighter weight, it's useful for that. And also, since I've been injured, it's been quite useful for a bit of rehab and slowly building up some weighted exercises as well. So these are sort of things that most people have lying around from over the years. They can be really useful, especially when you're starting out. I remember when I started, 3 or 2 kilos was quite challenging in terms of doing anything additional. Even a shoulder press was quite challenging with that weight. But as I've gotten stronger, I don't use them as much. Light dumbbells can also be really useful for building up wrist strength. So with calisthenics and body weight bearing exercises, obviously there's a lot of strain on your joints, but particularly people notice it in their wrists. I get a lot of questions about how do you overcome wrist pain or strengthen up your wrists. And you can use light weights to do that, as well as body weight bearing exercises. So you can just hold a weight in your hand and then just roll your wrist upwards, and then back down again in a controlled movement, obviously increasing the weight in your hand over time, and you'll notice that it'll start to build up. But there's all sorts of things that you can do to increase wrist strength. And if you would like a video or some top tips on it, just let me know and I can make one. But in terms of dumbbells, you don't necessarily need to have them. They can be a nice addition to have if they're lying around, but you can definitely substitute them for things that you have around your house. So water bottles of the same weight, or tin cans even, something like that is perfectly useful if you're starting out, for example. I know it sounds like if I'm saying use tin cans as a weight, it doesn't seem like it's very heavy, but I remember when I was starting out, a tin can was perfectly challenging to do things like flies or even to do bicep curls. So don't feel afraid or ashamed to use light weights if that's what you need. If it's challenging you, that's what you wanted to be doing. So if it's challenging you, it's changing you. So if that weight is challenging for you, go ahead, work on your form, start building up that strength, and you can increase your weight over time. Okay, moving on, we're going to talk about something else that most people already have, which is resistance bands. So I have the mini bands like this, and I also have the long resistance bands as well. I'll just quickly run over this. This is a relatively new addition. I used to use this when I did glute bridges, and I mean, I still do use it sometimes when I do glute bridges, and basically for activation work. So can be really useful to have. They're super cheap. I think I picked mine up from Amazon. Not necessary, but they can add a little bit of difficulty, a little bit of resistance to your exercises, and really good for warming up and activation work of muscles as well. In terms of long resistance bands, these are very popular in calisthenics, and I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with them. I rarely used bands until maybe the last 6 months, and my collection seems to have grown significantly. I'm sorry, my camera card was full. All right, back to bands. So with bands, they can either do one of two functions. They can either make an exercise easier by giving you some assistance and reducing the body weight, or they can make an exercise harder by adding resistance. So I will try to give you a few examples, but obviously the main one that you would have seen would be assisted pull-ups or chin-ups, that sort of thing, where people loop the band around the bar and then they use that to give them a little bit of assistance to reduce their body weight. Now in that circumstance, the thicker the band, the easier the exercise will become because it will take off some of your body weight. Then as you work your way through the progressions and you get stronger, you can start to reduce the size of the band until you eventually get to being able to do them with your body weight. Alternatively, you can make an exercise harder. So for example, you can make your push-ups harder by using a band. So you can put a band around your shoulders. They're so tangled. Shows how often I use them. You can put them around your shoulders and you can do push-ups like this, and it will make it more challenging. And you can also use bands for things like stability work as well. They do have a lot of uses. I would suggest it's quite useful if you're trying to get into calisthenics to have a selection of bands, and they don't need to be fancy. So these are all from random places. Some are from Kmart, some are from Amazon, some are from eBay, all completely random. But I think the best thing to do is check the reviews and pick a pack maybe, because you'll be able to get several different weights for a reasonable price as well. But they shouldn't be too expensive, and like I say, can be a really handy addition to learning calisthenics training and also to making exercises more challenging when you get stronger. All right, next we're going to talk about yoga blocks. Now I bought these yoga blocks when I was on vacation in America. They're just some cheap foam yoga blocks that I got from TJ Maxx in the sports section. So they're nothing fancy. You can get different types of yoga blocks. You can get foam, you can get cork. I've even seen wooden ones, but it really depends on what you want, how much you want to spend, and how much you realistically think you're going to use them. Obviously, if you do a lot of yoga, you're probably going to get a lot more use out of them. I don't do that much yoga, although I really want to get into it a little bit more because I'm not flexible, I can't do things slowly, my breathing is awful. Yeah, it's just not good. So it's something I should definitely get into. But what I use these for is either making exercises a little bit more challenging in terms of bringing my hands off the ground. So for example, if I'm doing a push-up, I can do a deficit push-up and come a little bit lower, or I will use them for stretching. So increasing the height of where I'm stretching from, which means that I can put my joints through a larger range of motion. That's basically the two uses I get out of this. The other thing that I sometimes use it for is if I'm doing things like L-sits, because I'm not very good at them and I can't really do them off the floor. So having a little bit of additional height always gives me a little bit of help as well. So these are probably pretty useful, but again, they don't have to be anything fancy. In hindsight, I probably would have bought cork ones if I was buying them again. I don't know if I would necessarily go out and buy one unless I saw them for a good price, but the cork ones just give you a little bit more stability. What I find with the foam ones is that if I'm putting all my body weight onto them, they start to bend a little bit, and they're not the most stable of items, which is okay, can add a little bit of extra challenge, especially now I'm used to it, but cork ones definitely would be better. So that was my yoga blocks. I'm just gonna really skip through skipping ropes. Skip through skipping ropes. I actually didn't do that on purpose. Wow, lame. Anyway, these are just some cheap skipping ropes from Kmart. I think this cost me $3, something like that. This is my boyfriend's old one. So we've got these ones. I don't skip very often, but it's something again that I would like to get better at. And when I do it, I put on some really cheesy 90s music and I skip away, and I have so much fun. So I would like to learn some new skills and get good at it. So I recently invested £7, I know, big spender, in this speed rope off Amazon. Again, I just checked the reviews. I'm not actually sure where this was from, but what I'll do with all this stuff, if I can find links, I will just put them down below so you can find them. I don't know if everything will be online, but I will try and find something very similar that has good reviews as well. But I bought this skipping rope, this speed rope, so I could try double unders, and I was shook to the core. It made double unders like 10 times easier than this. I don't even know why I'm surprised, because this is literally a cheap, thick rope. We have to put a lot of effort into spinning it. And this one just was like a dream. Although I whipped myself every single time on the back of my leg, and it really, really hurt. So skipping rope's really handy. Obviously, it's a cardio exercise. I don't really use it as that. I use it more to get a little bit sweaty, but more so learn a new skill and just have a little bit of relaxation time. To be honest with you, when I'm doing it, I can't really focus on much else, so it kind of takes my mind away from stuff, which is what I really like. So the final thing that's probably in the general category is a yoga mat. So this is my beloved yoga mat that I've had since I started. I got this one in Rebel Sport in Australia. I think it was $30, so it wasn't cheap, but it's not like the most expensive one. The yoga mats from Lululemon or from Aloe or something like that, they're like £100, £80, something like that. So there's a lot of money, big investment, but I would suggest, if possible, spending a little bit more money on your yoga mat if you're going to be buying one, because they last a lot longer. They give you a little bit more grip and stability. And like I said, I've had this one since the very beginning, so I've probably had this now for around 4 or 5 years, something like that, and it's still going well, even despite Hugo's best efforts to completely destroy it. So again, I will try and link this down below. I actually don't know if the company still sells this, but I basically just picked it off the fact that it looked nice in terms of my color palette, because apparently all I like is black, gray, white, and navy. And that's why I picked it, but it's been really, really good. I'm about due an upgrade and I keep putting it off. But even if I do upgrade it, I will not be getting rid of this one. I use this for mainly stretching. If I'm doing calisthenics, I tend to not use this as much, but I will use this to put things on. Because my floor is quite slippy, this gives me a little bit of grip. So if I'm using parallettes, or if I'm using some weights or something like that to lean on, I will put them on my mat so they won't slip. So for me, this is a godsend, really, really useful, and I wouldn't be without it. All right, so quickly before we move into the more specialist stuff, I just want to quickly show you guys my chalk bag. Seems a little bit random, but this again is an absolute godsend if you're doing calisthenics. I also do bouldering, which is rock climbing without a rope. Sounds scary. It's not as scary as it sounds because you're not going very high. But for me, again, that's more of a mental challenge. It's more of a, I need to be present while I'm doing it, and it gets me moving in a way that I enjoy. So that's why I boulder, and this is a climbing chalk bag, hence the little toothbrush looking thing. But in here is some chalk. I just use the balls of chalk, and I use this for calisthenics as well. So whenever I go to train calisthenics in a park outdoors, I take this with me, and otherwise this lives on my squat rack, which I will show you in a moment, and it's a lifesaver. Before I had this, I used to have a little Tupperware box, and I used to buy the $1 blocks of chalk and put that in there and throw it in my gym bag, and I would use that. And sometimes it sounds gross, but it's really useful. You can actually just, if you're in an outdoor park, you can rub your hands on the ground in the dirt or in the gravel, and it gives you that friction. The reason this is so handy is it kind of gives you superpowers when you have chalk on your hand. I know from working with clients in the gym, a lot of the time they would struggle with trying to do pull-ups and dips, not because their strength wasn't there, it was because their hands were sweaty and they were slipping off the bar. So this will help overcome that, and it's so cheap to just buy the chalk and to have a plastic bag in your gym bag. It's definitely worthwhile, the investment. That being said, it's also good to train with and without chalk, so try not to become too reliant on just one or the other. If you can train with a bit of both, that's going to be ideal. Okay, next we have Parallettes. So I have 2 sets of Parallettes. These are probably the ones that you've seen more commonly. These are my ones I built myself. And then I recently invested in some mini Parallettes as well, or mini P-bars they're known as. So I'll talk you through the ones I made first. So you can buy these online, they sell them on Amazon, they sell them, again, I'll just tag a load of places down below. But I kind of was just in the mood to try and make my own. Again, they're my favorite color, grey. And what I did was I went to a hardware store and I just went to the plumbing aisle and picked up all the parts for the plumbing that would fit and make it into a Parallette. And I ended up with a Parallette. These ones aren't the best though. They're not bad in terms of stability. What I really struggle with is the fact that they're not very wide in diameter. So my hand really hurts. Like there's just not much surface area to lean on. So it can be quite rough on your hands. But other than that, they function perfectly, and I would never get rid of them because they probably cost me more in parts to make than it was just to buy some in the first place. You may be wondering, what the heck do you use Parallettes for? Which is a very good question. And again, there's a whole different variety of reasons you might want to use Parallettes. So they can help make exercises easier or harder. They heighten the ground essentially from what you're pushing from. So if you were doing a push-up, you don't have to come down as far. So if you can't do a push-up on your toes on the floor, it will make them slightly easier. But that being said, you can also make push-ups harder on them because you can come into a deficit where you're coming lower than the floor level and then pushing back up. So you can definitely make exercises easier or harder, but one of the biggest benefits of having P-bars or mini Ps is the way that it makes your wrist stack. Okay, so when you're doing, for example, a push-up or a handstand, your wrist is going to be in extension, which means it's going to be bent backwards like this. And of course, you're going to be bearing a lot of weight through that little joint. And this can cause people a lot of wrist pain. For some people, it's just something that they can't train through, and an option for those people would be to use Parallettes. Now you might see something similar to this when you look in sports stores. You see like the push-up bars or little handles that you can hold on to. So a very similar concept in that regard. But this will basically put your hand or your wrist into a neutral position, which means everything's stacked above your wrist. And that means that it will be a lot more comfortable for the beginner or for someone who does struggle with wrist pain. I tend to actually not use Parallettes too much. They're not something I reach for often, but that being said, it's something that I would like to learn how to train on a little bit more because they're also really useful for taking outdoors. So when you're going to a park or if you're going to go to a gym or something like that, and you don't want to have your hands on the floor or the ground is unstable, so if you're on a grass field, for example, this is a really fantastic way of stabilizing the ground as well. So I need to practice a little bit more on these. Like I said, I recently got these mini Ps. Where did I get these ones? Etsy, I got these from. I think they were like £29 or something like that. And they've been fantastic. So I've not only used them for handstands and push-ups, but I've also used them for things like L-sits again and reverse planks, and also just a lot of core exercises as well. So they've been a really good investment, but I need to start using them more. If you struggle with wrist pain, I would suggest getting these if you're looking to get into calisthenics, or getting a mini Parallette, something like that. But otherwise, it might be an investment that you want to make later on down the line. And it's just got really dark suddenly. Sorry, I'm filming with natural light as usual, so that's why. All right, we're moving on. We've got 2 more items to go that I'm going to talk about. The next one we're talking about is rings, a classic calisthenics equipment item that you will see time and time again. Right, these ones are from Rogue Fitness, and these ones are metal, so you can hear that they're quite noisy when they bash together. They're pretty weighty as well, and when you're looking at buying rings, you can get them in different varieties. So you can get metal rings, you can get plastic rings, and you can also get wooden ones as well. So would I recommend getting rings if you're a beginner? Potentially, yes. They can be really, really useful. You can train a lot of different things on rings. However, that being said, if you have a gym membership, there's a lot of gyms now that will have these rings in the gym, so you don't need to buy them. And then there also will be TRX suspension systems there as well, which have a lot of similar uses, although you can do chin-ups, pull-ups, and also muscle-ups on these rings as well. So you have the rings, and then you have the straps that go with them. They're very, very long. They're also very tangled up right now, and you can hook them around pretty much anything. So I hook mine around my squat rack, but if you have a nice big tree in your backyard, you could put it in there, or if you could take it to the park, you can also do that. If you do not have a bar at home, you're going to be limited as to what you can hang it on unless you take them to the gym with you or take them to a park or a tree. So just bear that in mind. I remember I got these, and even though I had a hook over pull-up bar on my door, it wasn't stable enough to use them, so I was quite limited until I got my squat rack and a gym membership so I could actually take them with me. But again, like I say, they're really, really handy for beginners to start building up strength. You can easily modify exercises with them. So for example, instead of doing a pull-up, you can start working on body weight rows, and you can decrease the height of those rows to make it more challenging. But then you can also make a lot of exercises much harder because you need to constantly be stabilizing your body weight as well. So things like push-ups are going to be a lot harder, dips as well, and then you can also train things like muscle-ups. So if you are brand spanking new to calisthenics, I would say don't stress about these, but if you have a gym membership and they have them, definitely have a play on them because they will increase your strength. If you are looking to get into calisthenics long term and you want to start learning some skills like back lever, front lever, muscle-ups, and all that jazz, then they're probably going to be a great investment to make down the track as well. Like I said, these ones are Rogue Fitness. You can buy them online on Amazon again. I would just suggest making sure that you look at the reviews, because with rings, it's probably something that you want to invest in a relatively good set, just so they'll last you a long time. And obviously you're going to be hanging your body weight on them as well. So you just want to make sure that you're getting a nice, safe set. Rings tend to attach with a buckle like this as well, so just check the reviews from wherever you're buying it from. There's lots of reputable brands that sell them, and just make sure that no one's had any problems with them safety-wise, and you should be absolutely fine. I've never had an issue with these ones. These have been fantastic, so I will link them down below if you want to go and check them out. Okay, I'm taking you off the tripod for this one because this is the pièce de résistance, the squat rack / pull-up bar that everybody asks me about, and I don't think you can actually get any more, but there's lots of different alternatives that are very similar. But anyway, this has probably been the biggest investment and potentially one of the best investments I've made since I started calisthenics. And I want to stress that when I started calisthenics, I did not have any equipment. I literally started with that yoga mat and that was it. And then some resistance bands eventually crept their way in. And from there, I've slowly been building it up. And I only bought this pull-up rack last year in April, so it's been about a year now, and I bought it because obviously this is my job and we went into lockdown, so the gyms weren't open, so I thought it's a good investment to make. I think I paid around £250 for this, which is a big investment, but like I say, it has been amazing. So I bought this one from Amazon. I just checked the reviews online as well, and they were all saying this was pretty good and pretty stable. It holds up to, I think, like 110 kilos, which is great. My boyfriend weighs 120 and he can use it, so looks like you can actually get away with a little bit more. And this one also has a squat rack as well. So for him, he uses it for squatting, but for me, I use those as footholds so I can get to the top and do my negative muscle ups. So where there's a will, there is a way. Now, I'm very fortunate that in the place I live, I have very, very high ceilings. So it fits very nicely, but it is pretty tall at its full extension. I can't really reach the top and it's at the max height right now. So obviously this is a pretty hefty piece of equipment to have hanging around your place. So I wouldn't suggest it for everyone. Obviously, if you want to learn how to do bar skills or pull-ups, it's going to be very, very useful and probably pretty important to be able to have a bar, although you can use the rings instead. So if you have a tree, you can use rings. But if you wanted a bar, then you can always just grab one of the hook over the door pull-up bars. And that's what I started with. I just got mine from Kmart in Australia. And then when I was in England, I got mine from Argos. I think it cost me £20. and in Australia it was like 20 bucks. They're super cheap. You can get them on Amazon as well. So again, I'll try and find some and link them down below, but just check the reviews, and then also, top tip, check the dimensions and your door frame just to make sure that it will actually work, because a lot of the times I hear people buy them and they don't actually fit on the door frame and they can't use them. So that would be my suggestion if you're looking to get into pull-ups. That being said, there are still some exercises that you can do without a bar, which will help build up the strength for pull-ups. So go and check out some of the Learn Calisthenics at Home videos if you want to see those. But if you want to learn how to do pull-ups, essentially you're going to need to have a bar or rings eventually. So for me, this has been an amazing investment, but obviously this is my job and I spend my life doing this stuff. I wouldn't suggest something as big as this is necessary in any way for most people. And if you're fortunate enough to have a gym near you as well, then you definitely don't need one. But a door-mounted pull-up bar is, chef's kiss, such a good piece of equipment to have at home if you can. Okay, so I think that's most of the equipment that I was going to share with you. Hopefully, like I said, you've been seeing some clips of me using this and some ideas for which exercises you could do. If you're a beginner and you're just starting out and you just want to get into calisthenics, I don't really think you need much of this at all. This is just stuff that's nice to pick up along the way. If you wanted to pick a few bits and bobs up, I would suggest definitely a yoga mat, maybe some resistance bands as well, and then you could probably expand out to getting some mini P bars or some Parallettes, and then a pull-up bar as well. But this is the thing I love so much about calisthenics. Well, I mean, there's a lot I love about it, but one of the things is the world is your oyster and your body is your gym. I know that sounds really cliche, but it's really, really true. You can work on push-ups, dips, core exercises, squats, all of that stuff without having any equipment and with stuff that's just lying around your house. You can use chairs, you can use walls, you can use steps that you have. It all is ideal. And like I said, when I started out, I didn't have any of this equipment. I just had an empty room in my house that I made space in. And that was what I used for the best part of probably a year, I reckon. Okay, now I'm going to clear all this stuff up, and I have a lot of programming to do for clients. I also have a group coaching call a little bit later. But first, coffee, clean up this stuff, a little bit of exercise maybe, and I will check in on you because I wanted to give you guys an update on how my back is going and just a few exciting things that have been happening as well. So I will see you guys in a bit. Okay, so back from the gym, and I've had to jam myself into this awkward spot because there's some natural daylight which I'm going to use to film, but it's extremely bright. So I'm sorry if that's a bit distracting, but I thought I would just have a quick catch up with you. First of all, let me tell you what I did at the gym and also how it fits in with calisthenics training, because obviously this is a video about what calisthenics equipment I have and what is good for beginners. And I suppose I should answer the question, do I only ever train calisthenics or do I go to a gym? So I'm actually in the process of filming a week's worth of workouts, so you'll probably get a better answer to this over the next couple of weeks. But I do a little bit of everything, although calisthenics and bodyweight training is my main form of training. So I do have a couple of gym memberships and I use them more so for the social interaction in terms of just being around other people. Also, there's a couple of pieces of equipment that I don't have at home. So things like parallel bars I haven't got. So if I want to do proper dips, I can't do them here. I'd have to either go to a park or a gym. And also, because of my injury, I do need to use some of the machines. Well, some of them are very useful for me at the moment in terms of starting to recover and continuing to build up the strength as well, because calisthenics can be very hard on your body and hard on your joints as well, especially if you have an injury. So there's a couple of different reasons why I do go to the gym. That being said, when I'm at the gym, I do often do calisthenics as well. So it just really depends, but hopefully you'll see more in that video. On the topic of my back, I don't think I have given you an update recently as to how it's been going. So when I actually put a community post up, I don't know, several weeks ago saying that I was feeling really strong and that I was really happy with how my body was recovering, and that is true. It was true at the time. Sorry, Hugo just nearly knocked the camera over, so I had to rearrange everything. What was I saying? My back. So I had a spinal surgery appointment, and I went into that appointment thinking that he would basically say, recovery's been great, you're still recovering, but we're on the right track, not a candidate for surgery, and send me on my way. And that's not what he said. So I went in, he did a couple of just simple tests, checked 3 things, looked at my MRI results. And then essentially said that the injury is very much still there, and it's a, for lack of a better word, a ticking time bomb, in terms of it probably is going to continue to happen because it's such a bad injury. And just in case you're new here and you've never seen, I have a L5-S1 disc bulge, and that's caused sciatica as well. So he said that there's definitely still a hangover of the injury, and in terms of straightening my leg, which I thought was muscle tightness, he said is actually nerve damage or temporary nerve damage. So his suggestion was to have surgery, which would be in 4 or 5 weeks, and then I would be out of action in terms of I can't do any exercise for 2 months. And the other option was just to wait and see how I go and be mindful of what I do in terms of movements and expect that this will happen again. And that really spun me out. It really, really threw me off. And I've really actually quite struggled the last couple of weeks just anything, getting into exercise, enjoying moving, struggling with work, struggling with the decision to make, and all that sort of stuff as well. It's really affected me a lot more than I thought. But anyway, I am where I am. At the moment, I haven't made a solid decision. I went to see my osteopath and got a bit of a second opinion to see what his thoughts were, and he was along my train of thoughts as to I've recovered so far quite well and have come a long way. Like, it was really, really bad just 8 months ago, so I should sort of use surgery as a last resort if possible and just see what I can do. And here comes Hugo again. That's where I'm at with surgery and my back. At the moment, I do get a bit of pain when I do certain movements, and it has stopped me from doing some things, so I've just got to be mindful of what I do. I'm walking a lot, I stand pretty much all day for work, doing lots of stretches and all that sort of stuff. So fingers crossed it will continue to recover, but we will just have to wait and see. Other than that, I wanted to mention that I hit 200,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is crazy. Like, I've already digested this because this happened several days ago, maybe a week ago now, and I don't know, it hit me differently to like hitting 100,000. I just can't believe it. And I think it coincided with you guys really enjoying my calisthenics videos, and it just makes me so happy that there is community out there that enjoy calisthenics. And I know that most of you are beginner and most of you are female as well, and that's what I really love, because I genuinely don't think there's a huge amount of people within that area and that space. And because I very much have been there, still am there with my injury, and I understand what it's like, that means so much more to me than anything else. So thank you so much for those of you who've subscribed, who have continued to support me through thick and thin, and who have been along for this journey so far. I am so, so grateful for everything that you've done. And I never thought I would be in this position. I somewhat stumbled into this. This wasn't necessarily planned or anything like that. And it's just completely changed my life in terms of, this is not my primary job. My primary job is being a personal trainer, but the fact that I am able to inspire and help other people is amazing. Actually, in fact, let me show you something. So I have this book, and it's a book that my mum and I write to each other, and it has questions in it, and you fill them out. One's for your mum, one's for you, and you send it back and forth to each other. So you just fill it out in your own time, and you pass it across, and then you wait for the other person, and you can read their answers, just so you can get to know your family a little bit better. And my mum dropped this off the other day, and I hadn't seen it in a couple of years, and we've been doing this probably for the best part of 8 or 9 years now. And there was one page that I had filled out, and it said 3 things that I might want to be when I grow up. And I filled it out over the years, and I was reading through it, and the last one says, someone who can change people's lives who live in pain or with illness, even if it's only a slight decrease in pain, or to motivate them. I would love to be able to help people live healthy lives through education about diet and exercise and the effects it has on human pathology, immunology, and biochemistry. And then I put a little arrow saying, perhaps I could have a business in this, ! And I wrote that in 2018. I've dated it 2018. And I read it and I was like, no way, that's crazy. When I was at 2018, I was at uni still. I was never considering being a personal trainer. I thought I'd be living in Australia for the rest of my life. And yet here I am doing basically what I wrote in the book. And it kind of blew my mind. It spun me out a little bit too, but it was pretty cool. This genuinely is, like, to me, I see my job as such an honor. And I do feel like one of the luckiest people in the world. It's not to say I don't struggle a lot of the time, but I genuinely am so lucky. So thank you before I keep going on and on and on. He looks like he's cleaning his butt, but he's not. He's cleaning his tail, aren't you? He's such a troublemaker today. Right, I am gonna finish my snack. I actually made some more oats because I'm kind of addicted to these, and I got back from the gym and I was feeling a little bit peckish. So I'm having this. I'm now gonna go and do my programming, and at the same time I'm gonna lie on the floor and do my stretches. And then at 6 p.m, because it's about 4:30, 4:45 now, I have a group coaching call. So that'll be a couple of hours on Zoom, and then it'll be dinner time. So I probably won't speak to you a huge amount more in this video, but I will show you what I have for dinner and take you along with a few bits and bobs this afternoon. Good evening. So I just had such a lovely call with my group coaching clients. It was really, really nice. We spoke for about an hour and a half, and then I went out for a 5-kilometer walk because I just felt like I needed to stretch my legs and get some fresh air. And it's now 9 p.m, I think, 9:15. And well, that's really bright. And I am just making my dinner, being attacked by Hugo here on the floor. As you can see, it's a really random dinner. It's just a chicken salad, but it's one of my favorite meals. I always just end up adding some random spices or sauces. I found like a pad thai sauce in the cupboard, which I put in. Brussels sprouts, some peppers, just stuff that I had in the freezer or in the fridge. And I'm really looking forward to it. I just heard my pizza pop and I am ready for dinner. Let's eat.